The last thing Eloan Vera expected to hear on her wedding day was laughter. It drifted through the marble corridor outside the bridal suite, light and cruel, while she stood frozen in a gown that had taken months to choose. Her fingers tightened around the bouquet as she heard her fiancé, Darius Hale, say her name. She still thinks this wedding is happening. A second voice answered, soft with amusement. Her stepsister, Seraphine. Eloan pushed open the door. Darius turned first. Seraphine stood beside him, wearing the diamond bracelet Eloan had given her the previous Christmas. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Darius sighed, as though Eloan were an inconvenience. I was going to tell you after the ceremony. What ceremony? Her voice barely emerged. He straightened his cufflinks. There isn't going to be one. Eloan stared at him. Why? Because I changed my mind. Seraphine lowered her eyes, pretending embarrassment. Darius continued without mercy. Your father's company is collapsing. Your inheritance is tied up in litigation. You have no influence, no useful connections, and no future that can help me. Eloan felt the blood drain from her face. You could have told me privately. I didn't want a scene. A bitter smile touched his mouth. Unfortunately, you're already dressed for one. The words struck harder than a slap. Darius walked past her toward the ballroom. Seraphine followed, but paused at the doorway. I never wanted to hurt you. Eloan looked at the bracelet on her wrist. You're wearing my gift. Seraphine smiled faintly. Some things are worth keeping. Then she left. Within minutes, the ballroom knew. The groom had abandoned the bride. Guests whispered behind jeweled hands. Some looked sympathetic, others watched with the fascination reserved for disasters that happened to somebody else. Eloan's father couldn't meet her eyes. That hurt most of all. She removed her engagement ring and placed it on the nearest table. Then she walked outside. Rain poured over the hotel steps, soaking her veil and turning the hem of her gown gray. She kept walking until the music disappeared behind her. At the old stone bridge, her composure finally shattered. She gripped the railing and wept. A black car stopped at the roadside. A man stepped out. He was tall, composed, and noticeably older than her, wearing a dark coat untouched by the rain. His name was Cashin Vaylor, although Eloan had no idea who he was. He approached slowly. You'll catch a fever. She wiped her face. I don't care. He removed his coat and held it toward her. You will tomorrow. She stared at him. Why are you helping me? Cashin glanced toward the hotel. Because I saw what happened. You saw everyone laughing? Yes. And you still came over? I did. She hesitated before taking the coat. Cashin didn't ask her name. He didn't ask who had abandoned her. He simply opened the car door. You need somewhere safe tonight. Eloan looked back at the glittering hotel. She had arrived there believing she was entering her future. Now she understood that future had never belonged to her. She climbed into the car. Cashin followed. Neither spoke as the vehicle disappeared into the rain. But Eloan didn't notice the change in his expression when they passed the hotel. The quiet stranger who had rescued her from the storm wasn't merely wealthy. He was the man Darius Hale had spent years trying to impress. The man Seraphine's family feared. The man whose signature could destroy their entire business empire before breakfast. Cashin looked through the window at the hotel one final time. Then he took out his phone. Begin, he said. There was a pause. His voice became colder. Every account, every contract, every secret. He ended the call. Beside him, Eloan had fallen asleep from exhaustion. Cashin glanced at her. His expression softened. Not for revenge, he murmured. For justice. By morning, Eloan Vera woke in a bedroom overlooking the sea. For several seconds, she forgot the wedding. Then memory returned. She sat up, expecting the loneliness to crush her again, but instead noticed a tray beside the bed. Fresh bread, fruit, tea, and a small note rested on it. Eat before you decide what to do next. No signature was necessary. She found Cashin Vaylor in the library, reading a financial report as though the previous night had never happened. Where am I? My house. How long can I stay? As long as you need. Eloan studied him carefully. You don't even know me. Cashin closed the folder. I know enough. What does that mean? It means I know you were humiliated yesterday. I know you have nowhere you want to return to this morning. And I know you shouldn't have to make important decisions while you're hurting. His answer unsettled her because it contained neither pity nor curiosity. She lowered her eyes. I can't repay you. I didn't ask you to. For the first time since the wedding, Eloan felt safe. She stayed. Not as a prisoner or a helpless guest, but as someone given permission to breathe. Cashin never crowded her. He arranged for her belongings to be collected, helped her find temporary work, and quietly made certain no journalist could turn her humiliation into another spectacle. Yet the kindness came with an odd mystery. He remembered things she had never told him. Her preference for jasmine tea. Her dislike of crowded restaurants. The fact that she sketched buildings whenever she was nervous. One afternoon, she found a new drawing desk beside the window. She turned toward him. How did you know I needed this? Cashin looked at the unfinished sketch in her hand. You draw when you're trying not to cry. Eloan's heart skipped. You've been watching me. I've been paying attention. Before she could question him further, her phone rang. It was her father. His voice was strained. Come home, Eloan. She stiffened. Why? The bank has frozen the company accounts. Darius's family is demanding compensation for the wedding cancellation. They canceled the wedding. I know. Her father's silence said everything. They want you to sign away your remaining shares. Eloan's stomach tightened. I won't. You don't understand how serious this is. I understand perfectly. She ended the call. Cashin had heard enough. They're trying to make you responsible for their decision. Yes. Then don't let them. She looked at him. How? Cashin's gaze sharpened. Let me handle it. No. His eyebrow lifted. I don't want another man deciding my life. Something changed in his expression. You're right. He stood. I won't decide for you. He placed a folder on the table. Instead, I'll show you what they're hiding. Inside were contracts, bank transfers, and corporate records. Eloan read the first page. Then the second. Her hands began to shake. Darius had been transferring her family's money into accounts controlled by his own relatives for months. Seraphine had signed several of the documents. Her father had known. Eloan looked up in disbelief. My own family? Cashin said nothing. She closed the folder. Why did you have this? Because I knew you would eventually need the truth. How? He hesitated. That hesitation told her there was something he wasn't saying. Before she could press him, the front gate alarm sounded. A security officer rushed inside. Mr. Vaylor, we've intercepted 3 men near the eastern entrance. Cashin's face hardened. Did they say who sent them? They asked for Miss Vera. Eloan's fear returned instantly. Cashin stepped between her and the doorway. Stay here. No. He looked at her. I won't hide. For a moment, neither moved. Then Cashin nodded. Good. They walked together toward the security room. On the monitor, one of the captured men was being questioned. He finally gave a name. Darius Hale. Eloan's face went pale. He wouldn't. Cashin watched the screen. He already did. The security officer received another message and turned pale. Sir, there's more. What? He says Darius wasn't acting alone. Cashin's eyes narrowed. Who is behind him? The officer looked at Eloan, then at Cashin. Someone with enough power to make this house disappear. Cashin's expression became frighteningly calm. Then we stop waiting. Eloan swallowed. For what? Cashin reached for her hand. For them to make the next move. His fingers closed around hers. We make ours first. Cashin moved Eloan to a secluded estate before dawn. He refused to explain everything, and she refused to accept another half-truth. "Who is behind Darius?" she demanded as they entered the house. Cashin removed his coat. His uncle, Roderick Sable. The name meant nothing to Eloan. It should. Why? Because Roderick owns the investment firm that has been buying your family's debt. Eloan froze. He planned the collapse. He accelerated it. Cashin placed a file before her. Your father's company wasn't failing naturally. Someone manipulated its creditors, purchased its liabilities, and then waited for your family to become desperate. Eloan opened the file. Every page made the betrayal worse. Then she saw the final signature. Her father's. She stared at it. He sold us. He made a deal to save himself, Cashin said. Roderick promised to clear his personal debts if he surrendered control of the company. Eloan's eyes burned. And Darius? He was supposed to marry you, gain access to your remaining assets, and complete the takeover. The truth was brutal, but it gave her something she had lacked since the wedding. Clarity. I won't let them have it. Cashin looked at her. I know. That quiet certainty strengthened her more than any promise could have. For the first time, Eloan stopped asking Cashin to save her. She asked him to teach her. For weeks, he showed her how the business world actually worked. She learned to read contracts, recognize financial traps, and question people who smiled too easily. Cashin never softened the lessons. When she made a mistake, he explained it. When she succeeded, he simply nodded. Their relationship changed in the spaces between those lessons. They began eating dinner together. They argued over strategy. They laughed over burned meals. One evening, Eloan discovered Cashin asleep in the library beside a stack of documents he had been reviewing for her. She covered him with a blanket. His eyes opened. You're still awake. So are you. I was working. You were losing a fight against sleep. A faint smile appeared. You're becoming troublesome. You're becoming human. He laughed quietly. Eloan realized she had never heard him laugh before. She sat beside him. Cashin, why do you care so much? He looked at her for a long moment. Because I know what it feels like to lose everything while everyone watches. She noticed the pain behind his composure. You've been through this too. Yes. He didn't elaborate. She didn't force him. Instead, she placed her hand over his. That simple gesture unsettled him more than any business threat. Neither withdrew. Then the lights went out. The security system screamed. Cashin stood instantly. Stay behind me. A window shattered downstairs. Eloan heard footsteps. Cashin pulled her toward a concealed passage, but before they reached it, 3 armed men entered the corridor. Cashin pushed Eloan behind him. Run. I won't leave you. You have to. One attacker lunged. Cashin fought him off, but another struck him from behind. Eloan screamed. Cashin staggered. The attackers seized her. She fought desperately. Let me go. One man dragged her toward the exit. Cashin forced himself upright. His voice was low and deadly. Touch her again, and you'll regret surviving tonight. The attacker laughed. Then a car screeched outside. Police lights flooded the windows. The men panicked. Cashin had triggered an emergency beacon before confronting them. Within seconds, the attackers were surrounded. Eloan ran back to Cashin. Blood marked his collar. You're hurt. Not badly. You're bleeding. I've had worse. She touched his face. You could have died. His expression softened. But you didn't. Eloan's eyes filled with tears. You don't get to decide that. For once, Cashin had no answer. She leaned closer. I was abandoned once. Her voice trembled. I won't lose another person I love. Cashin went completely still. You love me. Elowen realized what she had admitted. She nodded. Yes. He closed his eyes briefly, as though the words had reached somewhere nothing else could. When he opened them, the guarded man she knew was gone. He pulled her into his arms. I've loved you longer than you know. Before she could ask what he meant, his phone rang. Cashin answered. His expression changed immediately. What happened? He listened, then looked at Elowen. Your father's been taken. Her blood ran cold. By Roderick? Cashin's voice hardened. No. He ended the call. By someone we thought was protecting him. Elowen stared at him. Who? Cashin took her hand. The person who betrayed your family first. And together, they left to find him. The trail led Elowen and Cashin to an abandoned railway warehouse beyond the city. Rain hammered the rusted roof as they entered through a broken side door. Elowen's father was tied to a chair in the center of the building. Beside him stood Roderick Sable. Elowen stopped. You. Roderick smiled. You finally understand who has been controlling your family's downfall. Cashin stepped forward. You made one mistake. Roderick's smile faded. I made several. You underestimated her. Elowen stared at him. Roderick gestured toward a table covered with contracts. Sign the transfer of your remaining shares, and your father walks out alive. Her father shook his head desperately. Don't sign anything. Roderick struck him across the face. Elowen flinched. Cashin's expression became dangerously still. You touch him again, he said, and this ends badly for you. Roderick laughed. You think your fortune makes you untouchable? No. Cashin reached into his coat and placed a small recording device on the table. But your own voice might make you very touchable. Roderick stared at it. Cashin pressed a button. Roderick's recorded conversations filled the warehouse. Plans to destroy Elowen's family. Orders to intimidate witnesses. Payments to Darius. Instructions for the kidnapping. Roderick's confidence collapsed. You've been recording me. Only after I realized you were careless. Roderick reached for his gun. Before he could draw it, Elowen stepped between him and her father. You're finished. Roderick stared at her. You think kindness makes you strong? No. Elowen's voice was steady. Choosing not to become cruel makes me strong. Police sirens erupted outside. Roderick turned toward the doors. Cashin caught his arm. You're not escaping. Within minutes, officers flooded the warehouse. Roderick was arrested. Her father was freed. And the empire that had manipulated her family for years finally collapsed under the weight of its own crimes. Outside, Elowen stood beneath the rain beside Cashin. Her father approached her. I failed you. She looked at him. Yes. He lowered his head. I don't expect forgiveness. Elowen's expression softened. I can't erase what happened. I know. But I won't let it poison the rest of my life. She hugged him. Her father broke down in tears. Cashin watched silently. Later that evening, Elowen returned home and found the house filled with flowers. Cashin stood beside the fireplace. What is this? He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a photograph of the stone bridge where they had first met. On the back, he had written one sentence. You thought that night was the end of your story. Elowen looked up. It wasn't. No. Cashin took her hand. It was the beginning of ours. He led her outside. The garden was illuminated by hundreds of candles. There was no crowd, no reporters, no extravagant ceremony. Only the people who genuinely loved them. Cashin knelt. Elowen covered her mouth. I know you once believed marriage meant losing yourself, he said. I want ours to mean the opposite. He opened a ring box. You will never belong to me. His voice trembled slightly. "I want to belong beside you." Eloan was crying before he finished. "Yes." Cashin stood and kissed her. For once, there was no betrayal waiting behind the applause. But the greatest surprise came months later. Eloan discovered that Cashin had purchased the ruined hotel where her first wedding had collapsed. She expected him to demolish it. Instead, he had transformed it into a refuge for women abandoned, threatened, or trapped by powerful families. The ballroom became a legal center. The empty rooms became temporary homes. The place where Eloan had once been humiliated became a place where frightened women could begin again. She stood in the restored ballroom, speechless. "You did this for me?" Cashin shook his head. "For everyone who thinks their worst day is the end." Eloan smiled through tears. "And for us." He wrapped his arms around her. "For us, I built a beginning." Years later, people would remember Eloan as the woman who married a mysterious tycoon after being abandoned at the altar. They would call Cashin her rescuer. But Eloan knew better. He hadn't saved her life. He had simply given her enough kindness to remember how to save herself. She had turned humiliation into courage, betrayal into wisdom, and heartbreak into a home for others. On the anniversary of their wedding, Eloan returned to the stone bridge with Cashin. She looked at the place where she had once cried alone. Then she smiled. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Darius had married me?" Cashin considered the question. "Occasionally." "And?" He kissed her forehead. "I would have had to wait longer." She laughed. "That's your romantic answer?" "It is." She rested her head against his shoulder. The rain began to fall, just as it had on the night they met. But this time, Eloan didn't run from it. She stood beneath the open sky, wearing the ring Cashin had given her, surrounded by the life she had chosen. The woman who had once walked away from a shattered wedding now walked home beside the man who had never tried to own her. And that was the ending nobody had expected. Her wedding had not been the day her life was ruined. It had been the day her old life ended. The life that followed was hers. Completely, unexpectedly, and happily hers.